Welcome to another episode of Just Because Live. My name is Chris Nicolason, and I'm from Springs Law Group. Today, I am honored to have Bill McAfee on. Bill is from Empire Title. And Bill, we're going to talk a lot about Empire and everything you do there today. But I want to thank you for coming on and joining me with this conversation today. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate that. I usually have a face for radio, so it's rare that I get seen in public.
Having a face for radio, that might be the best comment to start one of these out too. And so, Bill, what I like to do generally is I'm a big believer that everybody has a story to tell. So I get a lot of people that'll tell me, they're like, "Man, Chris, I don't know how we're going to talk for half an hour," and I don't, I'm just a simple person. And so, can you kind of talk to us, give us your background a little bit, and how you got to Empire, and then we'll kind of move forward from there.
Gotcha. I grew up on a working cattle ranch in eastern El Paso County. So my whole background, all through high school was in ranching. I love sports. If you ask me what I want to be later, I'll tell you what that would, I would have been. I just wasn't good enough.
Okay.
Growing up on a working cattle ranch was something that I loved. It's a great lifestyle. It's the hard part about it's hard to make a living at it. Okay. And, but as far as growing up in that, it was amazing. I had there was a total of 4 kids, and we just had, it was an unbelievable growing up. So I love that. I knew I kind of always wanted to run my own business. And so all through, through high school and college, I worked a lot of jobs. I worked on the ranch, but I also worked a lot of landscaping crews. And so I graduated college in 86 and I started a landscaping company. And it's funny because I would be laying sod outside of the businesses and all the men in their business suits would come out and say, "Green side up." And then, so when I started the company, I actually named it Green Side Up.
Okay. That's great.
Right around then, though, 1986, they changed the tax laws on businesses and it crashed. We had the S&L crash. I got out of it with my life. And then I went and sold life insurance and securities. And I love that. I did very well at it. But what I was finding is it was a challenge for me. Some of the people, not my clients, but the people I was working with, our goals didn't line up. Okay. If you've ever seen the movie Boiler Room, where the guy sits down and he looks at the watts there, it just wasn't me.
Yeah.
So then I actually I did well at that. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do once everything went down, and I enjoyed working at the financials. I sold a lot of investments through there, but then everything I ended up leaving there. And that was in 90. And in 91, I was trying to get into banking. I had a really good friend in the banking industry. Okay. And I was like an academic All-American, coming out of college. And I'm like, it was like, this shouldn't be a problem. And I mean, I swear, I still I've kept this resumes that big.
Okay.
A lot of the bankers were actually just dropping down in positions to keep their jobs during that time frame. So, my good friend who was trying to get me into banking, he goes, I have a friend of mine who owns a title company. And I said, I bought some, I don't know much about it. So he got me to talk to the gentleman and I went from about $40,000 a year down to 13.
Wow.
But I knew it was time to quit when I got up one morning and my truck wouldn't start and I punched the windshield out. It's like, there's your sign right there.
Yep.
And so I went into the title business in the lowest positions. It's called the recording desk, and the owners and encumbrance report. So that was in 2001, and started at the lowest point and then we since then kind of grew and went through all the positions. And in 2000, in about 2006. I went, Stuart Title recruited me. Mm-hmm. And so I went over there as their marketing manager and worked there. And then in 2003, there were some of us that got together. In fact, there was 3 of us, and we didn't necessarily, I'm not against corporate America, right, but we like something a lot better. We like something with a lot more family feel to it. Okay. And so 3 of us started Empire in 2003. That was it from the ground up. Nice. So we're 18 years in this August. And ironically, we just sold the business to Stewart Title here in September.
Really?
Which was the company I had left back in 2003.
Wow.
So,
holy cow.
Yeah, we've been blessed to be the #1 company the last 8 years, and we have great people.
Yeah.
We have fun. We got to watch when people start putting in for vacations because everyone kind of hangs out. So you see one come in there, you're just getting ready. Okay, well, here comes 3 or 4 that we finally told them, just let us know so we can get the staffing right.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so I want to talk to you for a minute about you mentioned that you worked on a cattle farm or as a cattle hand or a ranch hand growing up.
Yep.
And so I think there's a couple things I want to hit on. So one is, what does that, because I grew up in a farm in Ohio. Yeah. And my parents weren't farmers, but we happen to have a lot of farming and stuff around us. And so as a kid growing up, I knew people that would do like bull riding, and then they would, I knew guys that would have crops and all this other stuff out there. Right. So for you, kind of, what were some of the day in and day out things that you took care of as a ranch hand back then?
Well, we had a cow-calf operation. So what that means is, we would bred the cows, and then the cows would calve out in the spring typically, and then you would sell them in the fall and into the winter. Gotcha. So for us, the one thing about that was when they were calving, you rarely slept. Okay. You just, because if something went wrong, you had to be there. We did it enough that we could tell the ones that were close. If it was going to be storms, you try to get them into the sheds before we stormed it. Can I tell you how many nights we're out in the middle of blizzards, trying to find them, let alone, save the calves. Yeah. So it was growing up there. It taught me a work ethic. I will tell you this, like I would say today, people would say my dad might have been maybe even abusive. You might call it that. Yep. I don't call that at all. He taught me a lot of things, and the work ethic he taught me. People ask me, like, is your job hard? No. You know what's hard? Working on that ranch.
Man, it's so interesting you say that, because we have a friend, this attorney that we know. He wrote a book out there called You Can't Teach Hungry. It's John Morgan. But one of the things, too, that we talk about, even from John's standpoint, is that you actually can't teach hard work. You can't teach work ethic. And it's like and it's not even like to say no one these days has a good work ethic, but I do think it's some of those things like that. And you really want to think that, as being a ranch hand, that would really equate into what you do today. But what things have you kind of are like, man, I'm really glad I was able to learn these things back then to help set me up with the foundation I have now.
Well, the one thing that I think grew up on our ranch, you see life in its rawest form all the time. Mm-hmm. You see births, you see deaths, everything in between. And so I think you get really smacked in the face with what real life is. And so I don't think you're not coddled hardly at all. And so stuff that people might seem, to them just really bad, for me, I have a knack to separate life and death situations. And most of the time, frankly, it's not life and death. Right. I've always believed you do your best. I've always believed you do what you do and the results take care of themselves. I think that working hard in the moment, every moment, pays off. And so I think whatever you do, my grandpa told me this: if you love what you do, you'll never work another day the rest of your life. And I honestly love what I do. I am. If I went tomorrow, I've been so blessed. It's been a party, and so it's just been amazing.
Okay, very good. And then as an aside too, I do want to know, because my wife had me watch this movie a little while back, but it was the movie about Temple Grandin's life, mm-hmm. which. Did you guys, as on the cattle ranch, have any of that kind of component of kind of getting the cows to move with those systems, things like that back then? Or was that in play at that time?
Yeah, you know what? Growing up when I did, it was very flat. And so believe it or not, we did all of our ranching on motorcycles.
Oh, really?
In fact, from the day the calf was born, they would be used to us on motorcycles. And today it's all four-wheelers because, it's hard to leave your motorcycle standing up when you're running after a calf. But like there was a lot of people back then that did use horses. But you know what I found with horses is funny. I grew up on a ranch and I'm not a big horse fan.
Yeah.
When you fall off your motorcycle, it doesn't run back to the barn either.
So true. Oh my God.
One time, everybody wanted to do an old-fashioned cattle drive all the neighbors wanted to, and we had to run some cows about 6 miles up a county road. And our cattle had never seen a man on a horse.
Oh, wow.
And they stampeded like what you see in it just freaked them all out.
Wow.
I'd never seen anything like that. My grandpa, who was, grew up in Missouri and then came to Colorado, was he got out ahead of them and got them slowed down. But yeah, it's just crazy. They just weren't used to not seeing us on motorcycles.
Interesting. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, we'll talk motorcycles here in 1 second. Yeah, my brother he's watching and he posted. He's like, definitely agrees. If you put in the work, the results should absolutely follow.
Yep.
And one thing that him and I have been talking about recently is trying to plan. I'm not a motorcycle rider, but I got done watching the Long Way Up with my wife, the Ewan McGregor motorcycle travel show. Yeah. And I'm trying to look at doing something with him. So absolutely, that's pretty
if you
cool.
And your brother, if you like comics, if you haven't seen this, you got to see Wild Hogs.
Okay. Oh yeah, I've not seen that one.
John Travolta. Okay. It's hilarious. It's called Wild Hogs.
Perfect. I'll absolutely check it out. Okay, so then you get into and you open up a business with just 3 of you starting out. Mm-hmm. You've been in it now, you said, for 18 years.
Yep.
And you guys just recently sold. So congratulations on the sale.
Thank you.
And 18 years is a long time for a business these days. What advice would you give, especially, we're going to hit 4 years coming up here next month. What advice would you give to people who are looking to take that jump to kind of move from, I'm thinking about it, I need to get all my ducks in a row, to starting their own thing?
Right. I in the back of my head, and you can talk to my wife, Ronnie, in the back of my head, I knew that I wanted to have the best title company. Mm-hmm. But by being the best, I mean that took care of people. Our motto is, we don't succeed unless you do. Mm-hmm. And we just truly, truly believe that. And so I think for us, what kept us going is looking for needs that would come up and fill that need before everyone else did. Nice. I'll give you an example. In 2007, that was the start of things going down during the Great Recession. Well, as an investor, I've always bought properties from the public trustees sale. I understand that side of it. Well, one of the things that happened during that time frame is home values went down so bad that now all of a sudden everyone's upside down and their house was worth less, than they could sell it for. Yeah. And so one of the hardest things to do is work with the lenders to try to get the lenders to take less for those homes. Yep. And we facilitated those short sales. And that business, I saw that need coming. And that was a business that I had about 35 or 40 agents that I was just helping do short sales, and I had no time to do anything else.
Right.
And so that was almost that Short Sale Solutions was born out of, I'm trying to run a title company here, but all I'm doing is these short sales. And so then at one time we have 5 full-time employees in Short Sale Solutions.
Oh, wow.
Just to help. And that is one of the most brutal processes in a short sale. Most of the time, no one's happy.
Yeah.
The buyer thinks it should move faster.
Yep.
The seller's in financial trouble. Mm-hmm. The agents aren't happy because in that time they wanted to get paid. And for us, I had several that took over 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, it's what, and I make fun of this, and don't take this bad because I know how things happen, but the short sale side was very different from the lending side. In fact, they keep them totally separate. Uh-huh. So you have loan originators that may be at Wells Fargo, and then you had people on the other side that handled the short sale. They didn't talk. They kept them apart.
Yep.
And so I always laughed, and we had 3 people that ran that department that had to quit because they got high blood pressure.
Wow.
It was intense. And it was my golden rule in the short sale. Every time I train someone, I'd say, never, ever believe anything they say.
Yep.
It's just, and even if they put it in writing, you got a 50-50 chance it'll happen. So,
Bill, the stuff you just described to me, it's a mediation. Like you're a mediator at that point.
Yes.
Because you literally just described the way that I talk to my clients about mediation, where, the truth is going to lie somewhere in the middle. No one's going to walk out of it happy. A good mediated agreement is one where you both walk out kind of pissed off because you're like, I didn't get everything I want. You feel like the other side totally got more, and vice versa. And it just, oh my gosh. Yeah. You absolutely just described what a mediation is like.
You need to get a little scale in your office to show the equally pissed off.
Yes. Exactly.
Maybe not the scale of justice. But.
Right. No. but that's where it really works. But the nice thing within that, though, what I tell them though is, but the nice thing here is you both have control on what you give up and what you don't. So same thing there, where, if you don't mediate, then at least in our area, then a judge gets to decide, or a jury. And so that's where it can be really, really helpful.
Well, and it was very helpful to those sellers, who were in, a lot of them were in very, very bad situations, and it did feel good to be able to help them, through that process, which was just brutal, for them. And the bad thing is they were, you're embarrassed. And so, that embarrassment that was there, and I'm, I'd go into houses sometimes where people would say, well, I haven't even been contacted, and they would bring me a box of letters that they just never opened.
Wow.
It's just so, it's tough throwing bankruptcies in the middle of that. And just a real challenge.
Right. Okay. So then let's talk about, because I've got like I told you, I've got your website pulled up. Okay. You guys have classes and accolades on there, but I want to talk kind of about that classes piece. Like, what kind of classes do you offer, and why is it important for you personally to be somebody then that wants to go out and kind of give back and educate?
Right. Pikes Peak School of Real Estate, which is a real estate school that myself and my wife Rhonda own, and I've always enjoyed teaching. One of the things that, like, I've gone to seminars and stuff in my life. One of the things that I don't like about going to seminars is going to a seminar where a guy did it 40 years ago, and all he's doing is making money off the seminar now.
Right.
I actively buy and sell real estate all the time. I have multiple companies that I do that in. And also as the president of the company, 98% of the time things go great here.
Right.
But 2% of the time it does not go great. And so there was some, last year we had some orders where we had 1,000 orders in a month. That means 200 of those didn't go great.
Right.
And that's all I do. I'm called the 2% guy here, is dealing with that. And so one of the things that I truly like about giving the classes is I'm in the war every day. And so as things come up, I'm usually out to the forefront, and to be able to talk about that in classes that I'm doing. Like I do the annual commission update, which is what real estate agents have to keep their license current.
Oh, nice.
And then we also do all the elective, like I teach the real estate contract. I teach short sales. I teach the foreclosure process. So, all the commitment, how to read it, settlement statements. So, all things like that, I teach, and I really enjoy, because you can see even classes that I'm seeing agents 20 years in. This industry changes so fast. I'm going to ask you a question right now that I just asked my class yesterday.
Sure.
Okay, and I want you to just write yes or no, and I'll answer this here in a little bit on your paper. Okay. I don't know if you're aware with fair housing, but there are protected classes, whether federal or state, that are protected for buying a house, leasing, or whatever. And so I'll answer this here in just a little bit. Okay. In Colorado, is hairstyle protected under Colorado's fair housing?
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so I'll write down what I would think.
Okay.
All
right. Okay. So one of the things that's important for me too is I truly enjoy helping people. Nice. I've had people say, "Bill, you just like you could sell ice to Eskimos." I've never felt that way. Right. Like when I ask people questions, I'm thoroughly interested in it. Right. So, I've had people come back and say, how's their son doing in college? Well, God, that was 2 years ago when we talked about that. But I'm, I guess I do have a true interest in people. And so for me, it's later on in life that I've really kind of discovered that people do have certain acts. I wish I would have been, I'll tell you, a professional football player. If there's one thing I could have been, that would have been it. Right. But, simply, I just wasn't good enough. And, and when I realized that, man, it shook me, because I just knew I was going to do that.
Right.
But life throws so many things at you. And in my experience, the bad things that I've had, and I can't explain this why, and this may not be everyone's, but when something truly traumatic or bad happens to me, without fail in my life, something good has turned out on the other side of that. And so it's just, when I go through bad times, with COVID was hard for me. But it wasn't that. I lost my brother. I lost my mom. There's just a lot of stuff going on. Right. And then, you know what? And my brother, I got to tell you, he died of cancer. We found out late February, and he passed away June 12th. But here's the coolest thing of all. We probably talked, and we were always close. But, one of the things that we talked about was, I said, Steve, and he was my brother, and I said, one of the good things about cancer is you have time to do stuff. If I'm just killed in a car accident, and it was, we talked about that. Is it a good way? No, I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but sure. It was so cool. He told me, he goes, I don't know if I've ever been baptized. And we talked about it. I said, you don't have to be. But you know what? Growing up on a ranch family, we literally got a horse tank and we put it in the backyard, and my pastor came and baptized him in May, and he passed away in June. Oh, wow. The coolest, and again, how close when my mom passed away here just probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. Okay. But the cool thing is how our family is just gelling. And it's so easy for families. I think part of that's because of growing up on a ranch. But I think another big part of that is the values that were instilled in me from both my mom and my dad. And my dad and mom, I truly both are in heaven. My brother is too. They're looking down smiling because, my sister's-in-law's birthday is this Friday. And we always did birthdays out, everyone to do their own thing. But because, her husband passed and mom's passed, so we're all going to be there on her birthday. Nice. So it's just, and again, I'm looking at that and saying, wow, that's not something we typically do. Yeah. So I think it's the little things too. I'm so blessed. But I'm always thankful for the little things. That's awesome. There's so many good things that happen. Like I said, I wouldn't have a chance on naming them all. Man, Bill, and I got to tell you, so we talked beforehand. So it's Holly who helped set this up. So Holly's one of my employees here. She's been phenomenal, and she's done a great job. So it's my big shout out to Holly right now. But she talked to me too, even before. She's like, you got to have Bill on. She's like, you're going to love him. And Bill, like, you've got this like personality that just exudes out there. At the same time, there's sincerity and a softness to it that's just absolutely incredible. And so it doesn't. So like when you talk about selling selling ice to an Eskimo or what have you, it's one of those things where you always find that person to be that like pushy salesman feel, right? Yes. But I think you've got that know, like, and trust instead, where it's like, no, he's not going to sell it to me if I don't need it. Right. It's actually, he's going to listen. He's going to get to know me and who I am and things like that. Yeah. And I think that's been a big part, of just because it's a little bit contagious too. When you're, I do believe that it does, come down. I'm not taking credit by any means for this all the way through, but I do think it does come down how you treat people. I truly treat people how I want to be treated. Yeah. I wouldn't ask anyone here to do anything I wouldn't do. We moved our offices last October over a weekend. I was here with drills. We were moving offices. I wouldn't, and I think, and people see that. Yeah. It's, it's pretty easy to, I think, to use the foxhole analogy, everyone knows that if they're in a foxhole, I'd be right there with them. Yep. Absolutely. And I can completely agree with you too. If they had extra donuts, probably never leave. So I do want to show you these couple comments that have come in though too. Okay. So my brother who's still watching, he goes, look, he's like, the Eskimo would actually have to ask you for the ice cream. You don't even have to sell it. You've got such a great person. So that's great. We're going to have to get together with that guy. I know, right? I know. And then Tracy, who's an insurance friend of mine here in town, she asked this: do you think anything like like 2008 could happen again because of the way housing prices are right now? I mean, I know Denver for a long time was really spiking up, and even now, when I talk to my realtor friends, they're like things are on the market for a day or two, right, and then they're just gone. So can you talk about that? I can. I post numbers every month on what's going on in our real estate economy. And many things are different than they were before the 07, 08 crash. Okay. And one simple thing, 56% of the loans that we did this year were conventional. Okay. That means people put anywhere from 3 to 10%, maybe even more, into the property. Gotcha. Before the crash last time, there was a lot of, we called them 80-20s. an 80% first and a 20% second.
Okay.
And people didn't have any money in the game.
Right.
My favorite loan was the no doc, the stated income, no doc loan. So you lied about it and you didn't have to prove it.
Yeah.
I helped a young lady I helped her short sale she had 20 properties. She had 10 FHA and 10 hard money.
Wow.
And I started seeing this last time, and so that's totally different this time. It's not the lending standards are much better than they were back in. Just to let you know, before the crash, last time in listings, we had over 7,000 listings in the MLS.
Okay.
Yesterday we had 580.
Wow, that is it. Holy cow.
So normal in our market would be about 3,500. Okay. We have 580. I looked 2 weeks ago, we had 240. That's in the entire Pikes Peak multiple listing system. So we have that. We're undersupplied. Year over year, we were up in sales 6%. So the number of units sold was up 6. We're down about 28% of what's available for sale. Since April of last year, we've started the next month with less units available for sale. Since April of last year, and it's not correcting. So we have a classic demand and supply issue. Yeah. Now, put the other stuff that's happening here. I'm hearing Space Force now. Looks like it's going to go to Huntsville. But you still got Amazon. You got In-N-Out. You got Southwestern coming in. You got the UCCS, the health facility, the wellness deal where they're going to train athletes, and people like us can go there. Well, you're probably an athlete. I'm not anymore. But bottom line is people are getting tired of their cities getting burnt down, and they're tired of living on top of each other. Yeah. And Colorado Springs is going to benefit from that. I'm seeing people come here from everywhere.
Because we still have spots to keep expanding out too.
Yep, absolutely. And so, we're going to continue to grow. You're going to have blips. There will be, if we have a terrorism event or some kind of crazy political swing, who knows? Sure. But you're always going to have those. But to the degree that we saw back then, I'm not seeing it in the near future. And I'm not saying that emotionally. Right. I'm saying that on the data that I'm looking at.
Gotcha. So more on facts, not feelings, like my coach says. Yep. And so then the numbers then in that sense, it doesn't, as somebody in the business, it doesn't scare you with it being that 7,000 from before to 500 now, or even 3,500, what should be the average. That's not one to where it's, as long as that's just what the norm pattern is at the moment. Yeah.
It's, it's the one thing that is a little bit scary is because there's so little for people to buy. Yeah. We're seeing escalation charges clauses written into the contract. So they'll offer they'll start at 350, let's say. Yeah. So I'll go up to 370. I'll go 1,000 above the best offer up to 370. Right. And now we're seeing stuff that's even, they're coming in, people are bringing cash 10,000 over the appraised value. Wow. That's another reason 56% of the loans are conventional. Yeah. Because it's with FHA and VA, it's very hard to bring money on top. Yeah. That's where with conventional you can. So no, if interest rates would go up, and right now I'm just, again, the 10-year bond and note is what you typically watch. It has ticked up a little bit, and we saw a little bit of increase, but I'm just not seeing a huge interest rate increase would slow us. Okay. That definitely would. I'm just not seeing it. Okay. Not in the near future. So, well, and here's the last nut data I'll throw out with you. So typically we would have about 5 months. I run a calculation for inventory, and all that is based on demand and supply. Okay. So I take how many units have averaged over the last 12 months, how many have sold, how much do I have standing? I just take standing by sold. That's how many months I have. Well, normally in our market, 5 months would be normal. Okay. We have 0.37. It would take 0.37 months to burn through everything we have. Wow. Okay. If we didn't add stuff in, it's the lowest I've ever seen. I've never seen it like this. Man, that's crazy. Oh, it is. It's just, and by the way, that formula right there as an investor, I watch that religiously and a title guy. That one, before the crash, right, and right at the crash, we had 9 months of inventory.
Holy cow! So definitely a very different, like on two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Back then there was such a supply,
Yeah.
and then the money dried up, and you couldn't. No one was buying.
Yeah. Yeah. Tracy showed me or shared this too. She goes, "Yeah, we sold our house in 07. Came here with no job and pre-approved for 400 back then. It was a crazy time back then, but this is definitely on that other end is what you're seeing."
Yes, it's this is that one the sellers got killed.
Yeah.
And this one the buyers. Like I tell buyers, if you got a good job and you can afford it, you're at the lowest interest rates we've seen in history.
Yeah.
So if you can take advantage of that, do.
Yeah.
I don't like. I'm an investor that invests in homes, but my one that I buy, I don't. I'm going to live in that, and if I can afford it, and it makes sense. And now, when I can afford it, that means it's only 25 to, I hate even being 50% of your income.
Yep.
That doesn't mean I use 75% of my income to buy that home. So,
right.
And again, growing up on a ranch was a big part of seeing life that way. Because when we took cattle to auction, probably once to twice a year, if you took out the trailering them down, the driving down, but the time they were actually in the sale pen that they sold, probably wasn't 3 or 4 hours. And in 3 or 4 hours, you would know how your whole year went. Wow. And what you had to go forward. So.
Interesting. Well, holy cow, Bill! This I have to say this, and I was telling you earlier, you're my 24th show. This might be the fastest half an hour I've done in forever, and I could listen to you talk all day. And I think we're definitely going to have to connect offline because there's some other more questions I've got for you.
Gotcha.
And so I do want to honor your time, though, and appreciate you coming on today. And I tell everybody, too, that, generally I'll close with 2 questions. So the first question is, what is your favorite place in Colorado?
Oh, you didn't know that. Growing up in the Eastern Plains, I tell you, it's not my favorite place anymore. But there's 2 times a day that I loved out there, and that was early morning and night. Because that's the time the wind didn't blow.
Yeah.
It seems like it's always blowing out there.
Right.
Some of the places that I thoroughly enjoy here in Colorado, I've been last couple of years I haven't, but hiking and stuff like that.
Yep.
I love the foothills. I love when Bar Trail and all that.
Yep.
It's just a gorgeous place. When I love the Gunnison area is really nice, and then the Black Canyon over there is really cool. There's I don't know that I can say I have, Glenwood's great.
Yep.
Hanging Lake, we hiked up to that this last summer. It was really cool.
Nice.
But I don't know that, I will tell you, Colorado Springs is pretty tough to beat. For overall climate. It's
absolutely.
We have 4 seasons. It's and the word's out now too. I mean, people are coming.
Right.
But it's like today. I mean, it's sunny. I mean, it's and last week we had ice in the out on the street.
Yeah.
So I just. And I've been able to live in other places. And I would say right now, if I really had to say, as far as a place to live, it would be Colorado Springs.
Nice. Very nice. Okay. And then second question is, if you were not doing this, I would say running Empire, but you just sold it. And so you got this whole world ahead of you now.
Yeah.
But what would your dream job be? And you mentioned it earlier. So
yeah, I always wanted to play professional football. I grew up and went to a small school and was pretty, as a big kid, and I played college football. And I just, I realized it was my freshman year in college.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, this just, I was all playing with people just like me.
Okay.
And it wasn't like you were, it was, and so it was, and then, but I had always dreamed of that. It was just, but it was a dream, and it was fun, and I got to play a lot, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And so, but yeah, growing up, that would have been what I would have, that would have been my dream job.
That is awesome. Okay. So before I let you tell people how they can find you, you do have to answer me then. So I'm going to give you my, you asked a question, and so my answer. So what was the question?
Is hairstyle now a protected class under Colorado Fair Housing? You said no. And I will tell you, I would have said no too. Okay. I teach a class. It is a protected class.
Interesting.
It went through the Senate and stuff here this last year. So hairstyle, which I don't think I'm going to have to worry about that much.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. Oh, that's awesome. There we go.
Yeah, no, that's the crazy stuff that I always laugh. I say the world's kind of crazy right now. I mean, it's just kind of crazy.
Absolutely.
My best way of saying that.
Bill, where can people find you?
You know what? If they want to go to the website, it's www.etcos.com.
Perfect.
And that just stands for Empire Title of Colorado Springs. So ETCOS. Excellent. That's our website. Our phone number is 719. This is going to be terrible. I always got it in my shoes on. Let me give you this. I'm actually going to give you myself. Whoa. It is 884-5300. So it's 719-884-5300. And that's our main office number. You're welcome to call. And if you have real estate questions or, I help people. I have people call me all the time. Sometimes they'll go to sell on their own, or they just have friends who have just questions, how things work. So, it's so we honestly are, our company motto is, again, we don't succeed unless you do. And we take that really serious.
Nice. Well, Bill McAfee, thank you for coming on today. We appreciate it quite a bit. And for everybody else out there, we will see you next time. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Tell Holly hi.
Absolutely.